This is the GameSir Tarantula Pro, a symmetrical joystick controller, just like a PlayStation layout if you want to see it that way. This thing is insanely specced out. Let's just crack on with it. So straight away, this one comes in at about 63 British pounds. Without the stand and the chargy doodad, it's about 55 pounds. Links will be in the description below. Now inside here, we get all this. We get a manual and some stickers and stuff. We get the controller. Whooching! We get these joystick protectors, which I'm always fond to see inside boxes. We get a USB-A to USB-C cable, just like this. And then we get this bit, which is not just a stand, it is actually a charger and a USB dongle extender. So whilst this is, you know, about £8, maybe $10 or so more expensive to get the version with this is actually a dock, which has RGB in it as well. So it just sits on there and charges it once you plug this charging lead into the back just there. But the other good thing is that it is an extender. So you do have this dongle just there, which comes out, and you can just plug this into any device. But of course, if you were using this, say like on a PC or whatever, you could leave this plugged into there, have this plugged into your computer, route it around the back and all that good stuff, right? Have this sat on your desk, and it is also the 2.4 gigahertz dongle. So I'm always a fan of like docking things for controllers that also act as an extender for that dongle, because that's a win. Because, you know, if you're like me and my computer's down there and it's all routed around the back and can't really get around the back of my desk, it's kind of a faff trying to put like dongles in and stuff. So having it routed around with an extra long lead is actually pretty handy. But of course, you could just save some money and not buy the one with the stand if you don't care about that. And this is the Tarantula Pro. So you can see it is a symmetrical layout, sort of joystick layout, instead of your classic asymmetrical Xbox layout. And I've been kind of having a good time playing with this. I don't know, I'm just so used to the Xbox layout, but this has actually been pretty cool playing it like this. Like the ergonomics of this thing actually fit into your hands really nicely. These like extra extended long horns just there. But there are so many specs, so I'm just gonna like reel them off and then we'll look at them in a bit more detail. Right, so we've got a whopping 1200 milliamp hour battery pre-installed, and you can charge it via the USB-C or with the dock if you get the dock one. You can use this Bluetooth, wired, or with that dongle. This has TMR joysticks, which do differ from Hall effect and potentiometer joysticks as well. They've got Hall effect triggers with the hair trigger mode, or you have also got a clicky sort of mode as well with a micro switch for hair trigger. So it's odd to see 2 hair trigger modes and 3 sort of ways of using the triggers. We've got 9 programmable buttons. 9 buttons. That is just ridiculous. Absolutely insane. We've got 2 lockable back paddles as well. We've got turbo at 8 Hertz mode, 12 Hertz mode, and 20 Hertz mode. We've got a 12 input macro recording. We've got a tactile micro switch D-pad. We've got NFC for Amiibos on the Nintendo Switch. It can wake the Switch from sleep as well. We've got 6-axis gyro. We've got HD rumble. This actually has HD linear rumble motors inside it as well. We've got customizable RGB, as well as having a swappable layout. So let me just show you really quickly. So do you see this, the layout? Watch this. Woo! It just span round physically. There's like an actual little gear there with a motor in it that spins this round to a Nintendo layout. Just watch it again. Mad. It's crazy, isn't it? It's absolutely mental. On top of that, this works with PC, Nintendo Switch, iOS, and Android. So there's a lot of stuff this can do, and there's a lot for us to cover. So let's just crack on with it. So straight away, what I'm gonna do is actually just go over the things I don't like about this first. Now, normally I don't do that. Normally I save it to the end, but I wanna get over the things I don't really like because pretty much everything else I do like. So what I don't like is it just feels a little bit cheap. Like, I'm sorry, GameSir, I'm a big fan of GameSir products, but it just feels on the little side of like budget feeling. I don't know why that is. And I think part of it is you can kind of feel the springs and stuff. If you tap it, you can feel the vibration like going across the whole thing, as if you've got like a taut spring and you knock it and you can feel all the like waves going through it. You get that kind of feel, like, and it's a little bit rattly, like just a little bit. So that's really my only downside, is just I wouldn't even say the build quality because it all fits very well. Like, it's all finished very nicely. Oh, the other thing is the back paddles are like very slightly out of sync in terms of like the feel of consistency. So this one seems to move a lot more and is more clicky. This one's a bit more like less movement and a bit more sort of like mushy feeling. So there's just like a very slight inconsistency in the feel of this device. But honestly, aside from that, with everything this can do, this is actually like a pretty mental controller. So let's go through it. So you can see the actual dock itself has like RGB LEDs in it for lighting up. So let's just take a tour of the actual controller then. We've got this kind of digital camo sort of going on just here. And I don't dislike that, you know, I don't dislike it. I do feel like it makes it a little bit messy because there's so many buttons and stuff. But, you know, I'm not, against this design in any way. We've got symmetrical layout joysticks and they've got these lovely caps on them, really super grippy, very, very nice caps with anti-friction rings as well as anti-friction metal rings around the stems of the joysticks, so these feel very, very smooth. We've got the GameSir button just there, which acts as your Xbox button or your Steam button or your Game Bar button, whatever you've got that sort of like set to. It's like the home button, right? We then have our screenshot button, our like select button, our start button, whatever you call those these days. You've got our face buttons, which you can spin around. You've got the micro switches in the D-pad as well. Then we've got C1, 2, 3, and 4, which are all custom buttons, right? This is also a button. So pressing it just there is a button. You could probably see my ally like dimming in the background. I'm pretty sure it's taking screenshots. These are also buttons on the sides of this thing, which is mad, right? Then on the top, we've got our bumpers just here, which, you know, they feel all right. They're consistent with one another. We've got our Hall effect analog triggers, which feel very, very nice, and they actuate very quickly. We'll see that very soon. On the top, we've got the USB-C port just there. On the very bottom, you've got your like wireless connection button as well. And now we've got these, right? So this is for the triggers. So if I move this over, this is now a micro switch input. So for hair trigger, and it is super, super good. Like as soon as you touch that, there's no like pre or post, well, maybe a bit of post travel, but no pre-travel. As soon as you tap that, it is actuating, which is awesome. If I go to the other side, you can see the Hall effect trigger as well. And we can adjust that in like with onboard settings, which we'll go through in a bit, right? So you've got the physical switch that will change it from an analog to a micro switch hair trigger. That's how I've been playing, because if you're on a shooter, you know, you can hear the click and feel the click that you've shot it, right? So that would be the best way in my opinion, right? And then on the back, we've got our M button, which is what we're going to use for like changing loads of stuff. We've got our little contacts there to charge on the dock. We then have little sliders next to these paddles, right? So that's pressing, that's pressing. If I slide this over, which is very stiff, that is now locked and that doesn't do anything. So it's actually kind of cool because there's loads of people that really don't like back paddles. And if you don't like back paddles, you can just lock them off. And then if you still wanted custom, you know, button configurations, you've got C1 to 4 plus 3 more on this little like centerpiece thing as well. So you've still got plenty of options, even if you don't like back paddles. For me, I do like back paddles, but the fact that these physically lock them stiff, you can't even like accidentally press them. So even if you're like gripping really hard, you're not going to be pressing those back paddles, right? But for me, I've just been using them on, and I think that's what attributes to one side being a little bit more mushy than the other. It's almost like it's very slightly caught like in that mechanism, but that could just be my model. I do want to preface this saying I've had this for ages. This is probably like a prototype version that was sent to reviewers rather than like an off-the-shelf version, but I can't actually tell you whether that's the case or not. So that's all the buttons and stuff. On the sides, we've got this plastic grip all over. There's no like rubber that's going to go horrible or anything like that. The only rubber really is on the joystick caps, but again, you can actually pull these off and replace them if you wanted. Now, one thing that annoys me is that joystick cap replacements are not like standardized. They all have different keys. So like whether or not you'll be able to get replacements for these is another story. Now, in terms of the feel of all these buttons, these C buttons are lovely. They got micro switches in them as well, and they press very, very nicely. I wish the back paddles had those micro switches. I would have much preferred having those nice, quick actuating micro switches, those clicky buttons, right? That would have been very nice, but they don't. They're a little bit difficult to get to because you've got to like completely move your hands to get to. But if you're playing on PC or on like a PC handheld, like my Asus ROG Ally just over here, right? And maybe you're playing, I don't know, like an MMO and you want to have loads of different skills and stuff binded to your controller, well then this would be a really cool option. The same with the D-pad. It's a micro switch as well. Some of you might like that, some of you might not. It's got a nice concave in it. It protrudes quite nicely and it rolls very nicely. I am not a fighting game guy, so I can't really tell you how good this is for fighting games, but for platformers and stuff that I've been playing with it, it's very cool. These, the bumpers and the triggers are not micro switches. They're just like membrane ones, and these are cushioned membrane face buttons. Now they do have like a rounded sort of topper on them, so they are like a little bubble, but they don't feel horrible. There's no like pre or post travel really either. They actuate very nicely. And obviously we've got that switcheroo, which is pretty cool, because one thing with PC controllers or just multi-platform controllers, some people love Nintendo layout, some people love Xbox layout, and to get around them, you've either got to have like an Xbox layout look, and then with software change it to a Nintendo layout so that when you look down, it still says Xbox layout, but you're inputting Nintendo layout. It's kind of frustrating. Or the other way is that companies like GulaKit, for example, will sell you like an add-on pack, or if you buy the premium one, it will come with it. You physically have to remove the button caps and replace them. Kind of annoying. So GameSir went, you know what, just have both. And I do actually like it. When they sent this over to me and they told me that they were going to send it over, I was a bit like, I was like, it looks a little bit tacky. In use, I genuinely love it because I do play Nintendo games. Not that I emulate Nintendo games or anything. I wouldn't do that, Nintendo. I would not do that, okay? But if for some reason I was playing on my Nintendo Switch, because this works with it, yes, then I can change this over, right? So I'm going to press the back M button and hold A. So I'm just going to show you there. Back M button and then hold A for a couple of seconds. Whoop, and then it switches around and it changes the colors to white. You can change all this, but yeah, it literally like slides it around like on a little disc, and I think that's pretty cool. I can't tell you how many like slide arounds it's rated for, but it's not really something that you're going to be doing very often. Most of you will probably just stick in one mode or the other, but it's just kind of a cool little feature. And they've given you a little gear thing just here as well so that you can actually like see it in motion. Let's see if I can get it to do it. Woo, there you go. And now it's spanned back around to an Xbox layout. And the good thing is that affects the software as well. Like the output signal that's being sent from the controller. You don't need to do anything on your Windows PC or whatever, right? To say, oh no, I've just changed it. It will now input as that layout, because that's what I thought. I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to go into software now and change it. But no, the controller does it for you. It's a pretty cool feature. Right. I want to go over the joysticks next before we go over some of the other stuff that this can do, right? Because this actually has TMR joysticks. So these essentially have a higher polling rate. So GameSir are saying that their MagRes TMR joysticks, trademarked, have 1000 hertz polling rate. They've got a way less power consumption than Hall effect or potentiometer sticks, and also a much higher sampling resolution. So basically, these should just be super duper accurate, really low power, and also they are still basically Hall effect, so you won't get drift from these either. They're just even more accurate than potentiometer or Hall effect joysticks. But there is a no dead zone mode, and then this got me like sort of testing it out a bit more, because I think no dead zone mode on all controllers is actually raw mode, and I've only just twigged that. Right, this might be incredibly difficult for you all to see, but we're gonna be looking over here. If we go to test circularity, right, I'm gonna go to the right, spin it round, you know, very slowly, and just do it again and again, and there we go. We've got a 0.2% error rate. However, if we start this again, right, and go into no dead zone mode, so to go into no dead zone mode, I'm going to press M and then hold the right stick down. It's going to then vibrate. Now you can see it starting overthrowing over that circular sort of dead zone that we looked at. So it's going past that circle now. And if I go into test circularity, right, you can see that the error rate is larger, and now it's inputting in like a square sort of way, right? So it's not a circle anymore, and the error rate is higher, but this is actually more accurate because you're getting like more accurate diagonals. So that means like before, when you'd hit the outer range, you would actually only be pressing it in maybe like 85% or something like that. So this is actually going to throw you off unless you're used to like raw mode, or depending on the game that you're playing. Certain games don't mess with the joystick settings and let you take advantage of this more. But basically this would give you a higher accuracy because there's actually more range of motion and more like movement in the sticks. It's like a true joystick mode, right? But if we took it off, it would go back to a circle mode, which most people are probably used to, but that is an option. So no dead zone mode is actually raw mode, if you're wondering. Now let's look at those triggers, because like I said, we've got some different options going on here. We've got analog triggers, right? So if you press it low, like if you're in a racing game, just pressing it a little bit would make your engine go slow. If you fully maxed it out, then it would drive faster, right? So it's got that gradual sort of input mode. Whereas if I switched it over to the micro switch, it's just on, right? It's just 100% as soon as you click it. It's just a digital input, just like a Nintendo Switch controller, right? But there is also a hair trigger mode for the analog side of it, right? And to do that, what I'm going to do is press M and then hold down the trigger all the way. It's then going to vibrate. And now, even if I barely press it, it's going to input 100%. Now, I don't know why it's got these different like hair trigger modes. Maybe you prefer still pulling the trigger all the way down. I don't really understand the point of it when it's got micro switches, but I suppose it gives you a choice, right? It depends on what you personally prefer. Personally, I would just stick it over to micro switch mode where it's got a satisfying click and those switches inside are probably going to last ages, right? But if you want to use the Hall effect side and still have it hair trigger mode but have the comfort of pulling the whole trigger down, well then I suppose that's something. To cancel it out, M and then hold that trigger down again. It works on both sides. It will vibrate, and now it's gone back to analog mode where I can just sort of feather the input just there. We're now in Ratchet and Clank just here, and I wanted to show you some of the other features, right? So I'm going to program these back paddles by pressing M and then holding the back paddle until that there flashes. I'm going to then hold, well, just press X, press the back paddle again, and now I can use that back paddle to hit with, use melee, right? Instead of pressing the face button. So you can remap it there, but you could also remap it to these. Now by default, C3 and 4 are start, C1 and 2 are select essentially. So C1, well not 1, sorry, 4 and 3. And then you've also got these just here. This one is like default to, I think, screenshot. And then these two on the corners don't do anything. But if you press it like slightly forward, it actuates that middle button as well. But yeah, you can do that, or you can actually remap it to be a series of inputs, right? So let's press and hold M and then that one just there. I'm gonna just go like this. I'm just gonna just do some stuff, right? Right, so let's face this way and I'm gonna press that one and there we go, that's 12 inputs just there. So you can record a macro record as well. If the game's stuttering, just ignore it. I haven't configured the settings just here. I've literally just booted it up. This is a fresh install on my Ally X. But yeah, you can absolutely record 12 inputs to these buttons, or, you know, just a single input if you wanted to. So to do turbo, I'm going to press M and then X. And now that button just there is flashing to say, oh yeah, you've got turbo. So I'm pressing and holding it and it's repeating the input for me. If I press M and then X again, it's now going to flash even faster as it does an even quicker input for me. If I press M and that again, it's now flashing so fast you probably won't even see it on the camera because of the shutter speed. But yeah, now it's doing like the highest rate input. If I press M and that again, it then flashes green to say, hey, you've cancelled it out, right? And I haven't even gone over everything, but this video is far too long already, and I'm just going to cut it short there, right? So you could do far more with this, even still. There is other things you can do. Like I said, it's got HD rumble, it's got gyro as well. But the big thing is there's like a million different combinations for all the RGB LED effects as well, by holding the buttons and doing like different directions with the joysticks and stuff. There is so much that you can do with this controller, but in my opinion, I've covered the important stuff. So do I think this is worth £65 or about £55? I can't remember what it was, something like that. Yeah, I reckon it is, to be fair, if you are going to utilize all of these features. TMR joysticks are ridiculous. They've got that raw mode as well, way lower consumption, higher accuracy as well. They feel really good. They've got anti-friction rings as well as anti-friction like metal rings around the joysticks as well. The actual thing, whilst you're playing with it, is actually really nice to be using a symmetrical layout instead of an asymmetrical Xbox layout, which I always default to. So this is quite cool. I know there's plenty of people, including one of our members, Temperius, that uses PlayStation controllers but wants something a bit more like modifiable for like PC use. This could be a controller that he'd really like, for example. So if you're in the market for something with mad loads of buttons and loads of features and you want to be able to swap around, maybe you do a lot of emulation, not Nintendo though, don't tell them. This could be the controller for you. I actually genuinely like it. Everything works well. It's just that kind of like when you hit it, it kind of vibrates funny, and like some of the buttons aren't like equal in their consistency. But to be honest, this thing's trying to do a lot. The Tarantula Pro is trying to do a lot of stuff, and it does almost all of it perfectly. Just those little sort of like QC problems, which again might have been fixed because this is a prototype. So what do you think of the GameSir Tarantula Pro? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Do you like symmetrical controllers or do you like asymmetrical controllers? I don't think I've ever asked that before. Love to hear your thoughts down below. I actually have enjoyed testing this, even though it does so much, it's a bit like mind-boggling. But let me know your thoughts down below, and whilst you're down there, like this video, subscribe, become a member, and you can join our private Discord where you can talk to me and AJ and all of our amazing members. And talking of AJ, blah, 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 watch our podcast. That's what I'm trying to say, and check out another video from me. I don't know what I'm doing anymore. Bye.